As crazy as this sounds, even with the same blood numbers and total testosterone, every other day injection of a long ester like Cypionate is different than everyday injections. The main point and case study that I want to bring to you in this video is that literally you could do everyday dosing of testosterone Cypionate at the same total weekly dose and have flat libido and subpar erections, and just switch it with the same dose to every other day dosing and get your libido and your erections back. I want to discuss some of these dynamics that folks that are proponents of the everyday injections for TRT are not looking at, like the meaningfully stronger androgen pulse. When looking at the differences between daily and everyday injections, we are looking at the shape of the curve, not the total testosterone amount. We'll discuss how sexual function may depend more on signal intensity rather than flatness. And we want to look at the ratio of androgens to estrogen with daily injections versus every other day injections. To make the point that, listen, for some people, daily injections are just going to fail them no matter what the dose of testosterone is. But if they switch to every other day injections, they get their sexual function back. Why is this? Let's break it down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the dose of 175 milligrams a week of testosterone Cypionate. We're going to have the HCG dosed at 100 IUs per day. We want to look where the total testosterone once you reach steady state ultimately goes. So we'll hit plot. We watch the plotter get to its ultimate steady state. And once you reach steady state, you're at around 1,009 to 1,014, 1,015. It fluctuates maybe 5 to 6 nanograms per deciliter. And you literally stay within that range for the entire duration that you were doing 25 milligrams of test Cypionate every day. Now, we want to double that. So we have the everyday dose. We saw where that took us in nanograms per deciliter. We want to do the same total dose. So 50 milligrams every other day. Same thing as 25 milligrams a day in terms of total weekly dosing. It's still 75 or 175 milligrams a week. But let's plot this out. 50 milligrams testosterone Cypionate every other day, weeks 1 through 12. Let's hit plot, see what happens. Okay. We plot this out. And where do you ultimately end up? Well, at your peak, you're right around the same. You're slightly higher on the ultimate peak at 1,022 nanograms per deciliter. You trough back down within the trough period to 1,013 nanograms per deciliter. Or no, actually 1,010 nanograms per deciliter. So again, it's only a 10 to 15 nanograms per deciliter difference. Not enough to make an actual difference, but the sexual function on this every other day pulsed dose is substantially better. Before we break down why, I want to explain to you that this is literally the dose and literally the protocol of a client of mine that came to me unable to dial in sexual function on any dose of TRT, but was dosing every day for the duration of TRT because it made him feel really good and stable. Didn't want to dose every other day, didn't want to dose every third day, thought once weekly dosing was prehistoric, which, by the way, I mean, there are some people that are never going to dial in on TRT until they do weekly dosing of a lot at once. We got this guy dialed in at 50 milligrams every other day with HCG at 100 IU per day and nothing else in the protocol. The question is, at 25 milligrams every day, which is the same amount, took him to pretty much the same exact amount in total testosterone, why did this fail him in sexual function, and why did every other day fix his protocol? And actually, these were subq injections. All right, let's break this down. Look, at 175 milligrams a week, doing 25 milligrams a day versus every other day dosing of 50 milligrams every other day, on paper, those are equivalent. However, in the body, they are not. The reason is that testosterone Cypionate is a lipophilic ester inside an oil depot. It first has to leave the oil phase, move through the local tissue, and then be hydrolyzed to active testosterone. The thing that people aren't getting when they say just inject every day and that every other day won't be any different, or that any less frequent injections won't be any different, is that oil depot pharmacology is influenced by formulation, depot behavior, local tissue handling, and drainage. So changing the amount that is injected at one time changes the exposure pattern, even if the weekly total dose is unchanged. changed. All right, so let's talk about this. Why every other day can beat every day for libido and erections on TRT. So number one, every other day injections creates a meaningfully stronger androgen pulse. If you take a 50 milligram subq Cypionate shot, it creates a larger depot and a stronger post-injection flux of testosterone compared to like a 25 milligram injection in the depot every day. Even if the average weekly testosterone dose is the same or very similar, as we saw on steroid plotter, the shape of the curve is different. If you're frustrated with TRT and need to dial in specifically libido and erections, energy and anabolism, and fix sexual dysfunction, hire me. I am a coach that has been working for 7 years to fix complex sexual dysfunction on TRT, and you can book me in under a minute at livecortex.com or down in the description of this video. Using testosterone cream is the most advanced thing you can do on TRT, and I created a video course showing you specifically how to dial in libido and erections on test cream, and you can get that also down in the description of this video. And I think we need to look no further than short-acting testosterone, right? We understand that people can be on the same total weekly dose of testosterone propionate as they were with testosterone cypionate, but suddenly testosterone propionate, which peaks very higher, it's a different shape of the peak trough curve, then they get libido suddenly and their erections are back. We know this happens to people, so why do we question going less frequent with cypionate and that triggering better sexual function? The main point that I want folks to understand regarding daily dosing versus less frequent injections is that for some guys, libido and erection quality are not driven by the weekly average of the total cumulative amount of testosterone. They are driven by whether the doses cross an androgenic threshold for long enough after each injection. And every other day can cross that threshold, while in some cases every day cannot cross that threshold. All right, let's talk about how sexual function may depend more on signal intensity than on flatness. More frequent dosing, i.e. in this case, everyday dosing of testosterone cypionate, is largely promoted because it smooths the serum levels out. And look, that's true. And like, especially if you dose subcutaneously, that can indeed produce very stable serum concentrations. I mean, I've yet to see concentrations as stable as daily subcutaneous injections. This is true, and no one is disputing that. But stable is not automatically best for sexual function. So, I mean, if you're doing everyday dosing, you might end up very flat on the serum testosterone levels, but you have a lower amplitude signal. And I see this all the time. Guys end up with decent blood numbers, okay? The DHT estrogen balance, the estrogen itself is in a reasonable place, but they've got less perceptible androgen drive, less CNS arousal, okay, central nervous system, and less erectile rigidity and libido. What I have found that in a 50 milligram depot, subq depot versus a 25 milligram depot, is that actually at once you're getting more testosterone on the 50 milligram injection versus the 25 milligram injection. The signal strength matters. Let's talk about DHT. Every other day injections versus everyday injections likely gives more substrate for downstream DHT generation at the right time. Mechanistically, when you inject more testosterone at once, you temporarily provide more substrate for 5-alpha reductase enzymes to convert testosterone to DHT and androgen responsive tissues. And guess what? This doesn't mean necessarily like excessively high DHT during that effect duration window, but it does mean a more favorable short window androgenic environment after the every other day shot. If you need to dial in on Cypionate, yeah, it's hard, but I've built a video course on that. The only instructional video course that shows you how to dial in test Cypionate for sexual function, also down in the description. The increased substrate for reduction to DHT alone may describe at least the pro-erectile benefits of doing less frequent injections. Let's talk about estradiol, because this obviously matters. Every other day may create a better testosterone to estradiol dynamic at the moments that matter. What I have learned in coaching, which helps me so much to fix sexual dysfunction where other people cannot fix it, either the clients themselves or other coaches that they've been to, is that sexual function often depends on timing of your doses. A daily microdose can end up creating a state where serum testosterone looks adequate on paper, estradiol remains present and very, very stable, but the moment-to-moment androgenic push is blunt. People have to remember that when injecting testosterone into a depot, whether subq, intramuscular, cypionate, or enanthate, if you're doing it every other day, you get a stronger testosterone to DHT push first, right? Estradiol conversion from aromatization lags behind testosterone. So with every other day or whatever frequency, but less frequent than everyday dosing, what you end up getting is a better ratio of androgens to estrogen, because estrogen is lagging behind. It can't quite continuously keep up with the androgen load as it would on a daily regimen, because every other day you peak the androgens again, and then the estrogen is still lagging behind. What we're looking at is that larger every other day depots can create a more meaningful release curve than daily micro depots, even when the total weekly dose is identical. I want you to consider this statement. Every other day can perform, and has performed in my coaching experience, better than everyday injections with the same weekly dose, because sexual function is not solely determined by average serum testosterone levels. It's also determined by the amplitude and timing of androgen exposure produced by the intramuscular or the subcutaneous oil depot, and by the downstream generation of DHT and estradiol from that exposure. I say exposure because the exposure levels on every other day versus every day are different. On every other day injections, the exposure is larger. So a slightly larger, less frequent cypionate dose can create a stronger biologic androgen signal, which is what we're looking for, enough to improve libido and erections even when weekly milligrams and routine labs look similar. So I want to leave you guys with this, right? So that you can actually see a graphic of what's going on here. Why every other day can feel better than every day. Same weekly total dose, right? Different biologic signal. 175 milligrams testosterone cypionate a week, subq, right? Plus 100 IU of HCG daily. You got the everyday dosing, 25 milligrams every day. What you end up with, conceivably, is many small depots, a flatter release curve, low androgen pulse at one time. Blood work can still look good for some men, weaker libido and erection quality. Then you've got the every other day dosing, 50 milligrams every other day. Larger depot injection, stronger 24 to 48 hour release pulse, more testosterone at once leaves the depot. This is the key critical point. More substrate for DHT plus E2 conversion at the right times. For some men, better libido and better EQ. And this is a conceptual graph of the androgenic signal over 1 week, with the larger every other day depot versus the weaker everyday depot. Though in the end, you get a stronger pulse, stronger androgenic signal, better DHT to E2 timing. Again, sometimes the doses are the same, the blood work looks fine, but timing is critical for people to dial in. This is one of the things that has given me the advantage over other coaches that are not talking about timing. The point of this video, as is the point of all of our videos, is to give people strategy to dial in, specifically sexual function on TRT. If you're doing everyday dosing and things are lukewarm and your libido is kind of crappy and erections aren't up to par, numbers look okay, you're at a reasonable weekly total dose of testosterone, just try to spread out the frequency, right? Start from every other day, give that 4 weeks. You're going to notice a difference immediately. Let's see how you fare, right? If you end up needing the sweet spot of every third day, which is very common for people, you land on every third day, your libido is stellar, your erections are stellar, you feel good and energized, you're anabolic and stoic, you're dialed in. You're welcome. I truly don't think, unless it works for you, because everyday injections do work for some individuals that just may not need an androgen pulse. This is their physiology. We are all different. But unless you're one of those people, all right, with a very long half-life ester, like testosterone cypionate or testosterone enanthate, there is no actual point in the cumbersome act of everyday injections, especially when it is failing you in terms of sexual function. And the graph here shows us that the logic of hormone stability in everyday injections and how that sounds good, all it is a seemingly good idea that for some people can be a bad idea wrapped in intelligently sounding pseudo logic. As I had alluded to earlier, I mean, these are the kinds of distinctions that in coaching, as well as in the creation of high-level TRT products, information products, has given me the edge as a coach and as an author of guides, and video courses. For probably about another 10 days, coaching is significantly discounted right now. You can book me in under a minute to fix sexual dysfunction on TRT and get you dialed in. We've got an April intake TRT window where prices are slashed just about 50%. We do this twice a year. So if you've been looking to get on board with coaching, now is absolutely the time. There are 14 booked. We're going until we have 25 booked. That's going to happen easily by the end of the month and maybe sooner. So if you want to get coaching cheaper, you have to pull the trigger now. You can book me down in the description of this video or at livecortex.com or on the fact-finding call as soon as the next day. And then you and I work through a process to dial you in with a protocol that's forever, targeted to your physiology, specifically in resolving libido and erection issues on TRT. All right, source list, vetted list of anything you can think of, including DHT, down below. Our most popular digital product besides Sourceless, Mastering Libido and Erections on TRT, the Sexual Function Digital Playbook explaining how to dial in on every ester, down below. A lot of people use cream. I have extensively used cream, and with clients have extensively used cream. I wrote a video course explaining what I learned regarding libido and erections on test cream, down below. I did the same thing with testosterone Cypionate, a video course explaining all the protocols, all the strategies, all the logic of dialing in this ester. It's a video course, also down below. All right, my brother in test. It's been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. Do me two favors. Number one, like the video. Makes a huge difference. Sends our signal out to people that need to see it. Helps the algorithm a lot. If you're still here, please hit the like button. Secondarily, sub to the channel. We've talked about this stuff for years in the past, and we will continue hammering it home forever in the time continuum. If anything I said gave you any degree of value, I need you to subscribe. You need to subscribe, bro. Otherwise, I've done more content on this. So to put it all together, I want to leave you with another video that concludes the daily versus less frequent injection saga so that you have all the information to dial in. And click that video, watch it. Forget about what you're going to do for the next 20. It's only a 20-minute video or so. Just grab a beer. Trust me, you're going to want to watch it. Otherwise, more content coming this week. And brother, I'll see you then.